Okay. So how do we do this? How do I get people to kind of what that goal is of being a healthy eater? The first one is we have to figure out how we can improve our self-acceptance. When you're on the path to weight loss, almost everybody goes through a period of time where I can't believe I weigh this much. I can't believe I wear this size pants. I can't believe that I'm this size. I never in my life thought I would be this size. And that's, that negative self-talk really does a lot more harm than you even realize. It affects your behaviors, it affects your attitude, it can affect your health. So that level of self-acceptance is something that really kind of has to be built. And that does not mean that you have to be happy with the weight that you're at. But it does mean that you have to be confident enough to know that you can change and that you can make healthy behaviors. Because when you're getting down on yourself all the time about all the unhealthy things that you've done in the past, you can't really look forward to all the healthy things you could now do in the future. So self-acceptance. So for one thing, realize and accept that if you weren't a size 2, you're probably never going to be a size 2, and that's okay. There's a certain genetic component to our weight, to our body size, to our body shape, and that's proven. And there's not that much we can do about it. If your mother was pear-shaped and your grandmother was pear-shaped and her mother was pear-shaped, you're probably going to be pear-shaped. You're not going to look like a Victoria's Secret model, and it just is what it is. So let's get past that and stop trying to achieve that unattainable goal. Because if we're always striving for somewhere we're never going to get, then we're never going to be happy with where we are. So first is that acceptance. The part of that genetic component that is a big thing, we're kind of predetermined to have a certain number of fat cells in our body. And you go through stages in life where the number of fat cells you have grows. So during puberty, the number of fat cells we have increases. For women during pregnancy, the number of fat cells we have increases. And then anytime you have gained weight in your past, you're increasing your fat cells. Bad news is, once a fat cell grows in your body, it never goes away. You can never destroy a fat cell. All you can do is shrink the size of them, but they're always still there. So that is why once you have been a certain weight, you can so easily regain the weight, because you have the potential, always, forever, still circulating in your body. So your fat cells are what they are. We can't change it. So that's part of the self-acceptance. It is what it is. Let's just try to eat to shrink those fat cells. All right. The second part of how we, achieve our overall goal is work on the unhealthy habits that you have with food. So this is the why, who, what, when, how. Why are you eating? Are you an emotional eater? Do you eat when you're sad? Do you eat when you're happy? Do you eat when you're angry? Do you just eat when you're hungry? That's the goal, is really to turn into those hunger signals and tune into, I'm going to sit down and have this piece of cake. Am I actually hungry, or do I just want cake? Or did I just have a bad day and I feel like I need a piece of cake because that'll make me feel better? So really kind of tuning into that, because those little thoughts go on all the time in our head and we don't usually pay attention to them. So the why we eat, then the when we eat. This is, for a lot of people, if you're still in the working world, when you eat. You might have a scheduled time every single day that you have to eat. Does that mean you're hungry at that time of day? No. But your lunch break is 11:15 to 12, and that's when you have to eat. So sometimes we can't get around it, but at least recognize it. Recognize that. Are you eating when you're hungry, or are you eating just because that's when you're supposed to be eating? Where you eat, do you tend to eat at certain places? If you go to the movies, is a movie not complete to you if you don't have the extra large, extra butter popcorn? If you go to a picnic, do you not consider that you had a good time unless you loaded your plate full of picnic food? So where you eat is a big thing to people. What you eat, obviously, is the nutrition portion of it. But also thinking, too, what you eat in terms of your habits. What did you eat growing up? What were you fed growing up? And how does that translate into what you eat now? And then also, who do you eat with? So recognizing potentially the social pressures that you have in everyday life that trigger you to eat certain things or eat a certain way. Is your husband supportive, or is your wife supportive of eating a healthy lifestyle, or do they kind of, not intentionally, not meanly, but unknowingly sabotage you from eating healthy because they don't want to eat healthy? Do you have friends who their idea of getting together is going to the coffee shop and having a huge 900-calorie muffin? And so you feel like you have to because that's what you do when you hang out with them? Just picking up on those things. So those are your unhealthy habits of food that we have to recognize to be able to change. The third thing is empowering yourself with the nutrition knowledge. So that's what I talked about before. And this is not learning how to follow a certain diet, not learning how to count points, not learning how to count exchanges and that kind of thing. It's not learning how to follow a diet. It's learning how to make healthy choices within the realm of how you would normally eat anyway. The first thing I do when I sit down with somebody for counseling is I make them go through and tell me exactly what they eat and when they eat on a normal day. And the reason I do that is because if I sit down and I say, okay, this is what you should be eating, but they're eating a completely different way than that, that is not effective or helpful knowledge for them. So the first thing I do is say, all right, this is how you're eating. Let's pick out 3 ways that we could improve that, and then work from there. So that's part of the empowerment thing. That also becomes not so overwhelming, and it becomes something that when they leave my office, they think, oh, I could probably actually do that, Also, we work on food label reading, because that's a lot of jargon on there. Half of it that you don't really need to look at, half of it that you don't really need to know that's just government regulated. Like all those percentages, who looks at the percentages on a nutrition label? Okay. Unless it is recommended that you follow a 2,000 calorie diet, those percentages mean absolutely nothing. Because those percentages are based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So unless it just happens to be that your calorie recommendation would be 2,000 calories, those percentages are absolutely useless to you. There's other important things, though, that you should be looking at. So we look at that. We also look at recognizing portion sizes. In this country, we have a huge distortion of what we think a portion is. And I have these little food models, and it seems very kind of kindergarten when I pull them out in front of people and they laugh. But really, once I sit down a pasta that is that size in front of somebody and I say, all right, that's the portion of pasta you should be eating, and they just came from Delmonico's and had like 6 times that, they're always like, oh. Or they think, oh yeah, I eat about a serving of cereal, and then I bring out my little food bottle and I say, is that what you eat? No, I eat about 3 times that. Right, well this is a serving. So recognizing the food portions, that's a big one. Part of the way that I do that is I actually have people initially use measuring cups, use those things, look at the labels, and take the plate you would normally eat on and put that amount on there. So that visually, when you're cooking and when you're preparing a meal, you know on your normal dinner plate what an appropriate serving size would be. And that's not forever, but that's just initially to kind of get it in your head. And then we just work on, basic nutrition, healthy eating. What are good vitamins? What do they do? What, is there such thing as a bad carb versus a good carb? We get into all of that. The fourth thing, do you want to take a break? Or?
Well, are you going to go over why don't we finish this and then we'll do a third?
Okay. The fourth thing, we learned the key role that physical activity plays in weight loss. And the big thing that I talk to people about this is that most people cannot successfully maintain weight loss without some level of physical activity. Or if they do, most people will lose like that first 5 to 10, but then really plateau unless you can incorporate some level of physical activity in. We have to eat. A certain amount of calories have to go in our system. We can really only do so much with diet alone, and then we really have to add the physical activity in. But when I'm saying physical activity, the big thing is I'm not talking about getting a gym membership and having to go run on a treadmill for 45 minutes. Physical activity is individualized the same as nutrition recommendations based on where you're at, what physically you can do, and then what would an improvement be. For some people, an improvement might be 15 minutes 3 times a week. That might be an improvement. And people think, oh, that's not enough. Well, it's enough if compared to if you were doing nothing. So kind of meeting people where they are. And then number 5, you guys kind of already have number 5 covered, because number 5 for me is the social setting, which obviously you guys are all benefiting from that for quite some time now. There's lots and lots of studies and research that have been done that show that people that lose weight and do weight loss plans in a group setting tend to maintain weight loss longer, because When we feel we're accountable to somebody, in that little minute where we could go one way or the other, if we feel somebody else is going to be checking on us, we tend to go the healthy way. Versus if nobody is checking on us, well, oftentimes, well, who would know? Well, at least you all know. Your table mates will know. Everyone in here will know. So that social setting is important. So, with all of that, on one hand,
All right, we're gonna stop.
H-A-N-D, you can get weight loss success.
Wonderful. And we're gonna stop right there and